Yerrr Klk. What's up, guys? We're back. I got my guy Al in the building today. He got something really dope that we're gonna talk about. I've seen him post about it, and I probably been bothering him about calling him a genius and stuff, and just DMing him fire emojis all the time from all the demonstrations and stuff. But what's up, Al? How you been, dog?
On, Tim. Good. Obviously, we haven't been able to see each other. Tim and I, we train. Obviously, we train together at jiu-jitsu, and that hasn't been able to be done for I think 5 months now.
Yeah,
And yeah, just working hard. Obviously, trying to launch something in the middle of a pandemic is crazy, and it was never the thought that this was going to kind of happen. So
yeah, man.
yeah,
This is I think
here
that's
we
the
are now.
beauty of it. I think that's why I like it so much because it's like this was so unexpected, but you were ready to execute on an idea it's needed. I feel like the innovation and like what you're doing is needed. So I see
Sure.
it. I'm
Yeah.
like, yo, dude, this is fire. Do you want to give us a little background on what it is? What is
Sure. So,
Apollo
like, just to
UV?
kind of give you a little background on how I kind of all this fell together.
Oh wait, hold
Um,
on, hold on. I can kind of hear the fan now. I think it's kind of coming in when you're
okay. Yeah,
talking.
I'll shut it down because it's a
Yeah,
pretty big fan.
yeah, yeah. Like I can hear the wind coming in.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's cool. All right.
yeah. So my professional background, before COVID, or even I'd say about 3 years before kind of everything started, was in upper air germicidal. So any filtration or upper air UVC germicidal in your ductwork or throughout your house. And so I have a large technical background in that. And for the last 3 years, I was kind of semi-retired. I have a small boutique web agency and SEO firm where I would just help a small amount of clients just kind of keep their presence online. And I was kind of hanging out. If anybody knew me, they knew I was traveling probably every month. My wife and I were traveling somewhere new.
Yeah,
We
man.
would be, we would be all over the world. I think 40 countries in the last 3 years, 200 plus cities. We were just everywhere. And that's just due to the fact my wife works for an airline. She works for United, and kind of where I was in life and where she is in life, we were able to travel a bunch. So with this was something actually that kind of started pre-COVID. There's a big competition for grappling or jujitsu, which is called ADCC, and there was a bunch of athletes that I follow that had to pull out because of EKC virus or conjunctivitis of the eye. And basically, at the time, I was training a bunch. I was training at home. I would travel to the city in the morning. So that was like a 5:30 a.m. train to get to the city for a 7 o'clock class in Midtown,
You were at Henzo's, right?
just to train at Henzo's. Yeah. So and I was training there. So I kind of noticed that there was a need in the sense of there was it's so many people on the mat, and you have such high level athletes that are there all day long. So if you go to Henzo's, you'll see the same group of people there from 6 in the morning all the way till about 3, 4 o'clock in the evening. And then they go to their home gyms and train again or teach. So like you'll see the big stars in the jiu-jitsu world. You'll see Gordon Ryan. You'll see uh, the blue belt slayer or purple belt Nikki Rodriguez.
Nikki,
You'll see
yeah.
Nikki Ryan. You'll see the stars of the sport training
Gary
there right
Tonin.
next to you,
Yeah.
but they're there all day. That's what people don't realize. These guys are there every single day, all day long, and they're training on the mat. And they're very good about keeping things clean there. At Henzo's is another, like one of our school in Old Bridge at Hollis is very clean. They keep the mats clean, and they try their best to keep people safe. But you have people that are sleeping on the mat. Literally, I watch these athletes that are passed out. They're passed out on the mat, sleeping in between classes. And I'm there for an hour and a half class, and even myself, like I have my own kind of genetic faults that make me a little more prone to, uh, you'll see that I sweat like
Yeah.
crazy.
That's
So
something
I
we had
have,
in common when we were rolling. It was like, bro, is it you or me?
so I let people know, like, you'll always see me with a towel, you'll always see me with a drink, and that's just a it's a genetic trait that I have that's uh, verified. Less than 1% of the world have the way I have it, hyperhidrosis of the full body. And when
Sheesh.
people see me in like real clothes, they're amazed at the amount of sweat that I'll just sitting here not moving, that I'm sweating like I'm working out. So that's one part of it for me. I'm sweating like crazy. So the athletes there, they're sweating, they're training, they're cleaning the mats, but they're sleeping on the mats. People aren't able to keep their gear as clean as, let's say, as possible as like I would. A lot of times people in the school notice that I'm huge on hygiene. So nails super clipped. My uniform is always smelling really good and washed. Everything is neat. My bag is sanitized, and I'm going above and beyond, not just for myself, but for the safety of another person that I'm training with. So everyone catches EKC. Bunch of athletes start pulling out, and everyone's like, "Oh, Henzo's place is dirty," and this is that. And I was like, "That's not the case, But I said, I think I could make something that could disinfect the mat. That was really the only thought behind all this, because I was like, all right, I have this background in upper air UVC and ultraviolet light. How can I apply it to the mat? So I start working on it, and I'm loosely working on it. I'm training, I'm still traveling, it's not in the front of my mind, but I have ideas on how I can make it happen, and kind of how to move forward. So I'm moving slowly, and then I'd say 4 months into that, COVID hits. We're smack in the middle of COVID. There's a global pandemic, and I was a little bit ahead of it because I was following the news from China and seeing how this thing was kind of coming over. Because at the time I had family, I believe in the Thai area, and I had just come back from Thailand maybe a month before COVID or 2 months before COVID. So I just kind of follow the world news and to see, hey, what's going on? And there's this virus in China that's kind of flaring up. So all right, let me see what they're using and what they're doing. And I came across an article that showed they were utilizing UVC light, or ultraviolet C, which is a germicidal band of light, to start disinfecting the buses. And I said, well, that's a great idea. They took a unit that's typically used in the air or in the hospital room. So they have these huge robots or rolling carts that are in hospital rooms to disinfect against major viruses, and they were disinfecting buses. So I was like, all right, perfect. So there's definitely a use. Now, can I make it? Can I finish this quickly? Can I get this done fast? So I start working, like 16, 17-hour days. So basically anyone that knew me at that time, they knew I was working nonstop in the process of designing, building, inventing, and trying to get the actual system right. So the big thing with germicidal UV is you have to be able to deliver a very specific wavelength
Hello.
of energy, everything light that doesn't do anything. Um, so in this case, it took some trial and error, and some of the first prototype units, I mean, they were sparking. I was creating huge missteps in power, so things weren't transferring correctly, and I wasn't getting it right. And then right around, I'd say, late March to April, yeah, almost May, I'd say, I had something then that was viable, like a minimally viable product that worked.
Okay.
Wow, I got it. So I figured it out. This was all out of an assembly. Like, it's not put together. It's just wires connected and running loose, and just, can I get it working first? Once I got it working, then I said, man, this is huge, because in the market right now, there's a few companies that make units for hospitals, and they're very expensive. You're talking like 90,000 to 100,000, $110,000 a unit. So my whole idea was to design something, one that just isn't have a single use, because again, the original thought was for the mat. So I need to be able to make it to travel across the mat, but I also want that same unit to stand. I want it to be able to do a wall. I would like it to do the floors, a bathroom, a whole room, portable, inside of a car. I really wanted it to fit every single need in one device. So the concept came about getting it in a housing then making the entire unit modular. So basically, it allows its use standing on the ground, rolling with attachment points for wheels, attachment points for carts, attachment. I mean, this thing has so many different options. It's like an iPhone at this point, where I can add all these different things to it to change the function, and it still uses the same basic unit, the two behind me and the one in front of me, which is a portable unit. Um, yeah, so I mean, then I knew I had something and I had it complete, right? So it's like, okay, now what? Do I just run out there and just start showing people? This is a little bit too big for that. There was a huge demand, so I decided that I would patent, the process and the method and the actual housing, through the entire patent process, and that was a challenge all on its own
Yeah,
because nobody's open.
exactly. I was just
Who
gonna
do you
say that
call?
that's all like government ran and state ran, and the states pretty much like on their last wheels with everything going on. So
Yeah. So now it's, let's say, March, you know, April, almost May, and you're calling people. I'm calling huge law offices. There's giant IP offices in Chicago, New York, and no one's picking up the phone. There's no one at the office. There's no one answering any messaging services. There's no one answering any emails. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm so wrapped up in the work that I forget that the world's not moving forward. Like everyone's either at home, they're working from home, and these companies couldn't adapt fast enough to get somebody to answer the phone, so they're just like literally not working,
yeah,
or they're just taking care of their clients that they already have. So that was a huge challenge. And then the other side of it is, you want to create a business during a pandemic. It's has a whole other host of challenges, right? So you're trying to do things like get insurance, or get yourself incorporated, get things going. You can't call anybody. There's nobody available. Getting insurance for a device that disinfects against COVID or disinfects against viruses and bacteria. My initial insurance broker told me, Al, you're trying to get insurance on a building that's on fire, and you're trying to get fire insurance. He's like, this is going to be impossible. So that was, it's a huge challenge in itself. And the big steps is that when you're doing something like this too, is that, all right, now I'm taking a huge leap because all these things are going to cost huge sums of money. This isn't a cheap process to patent an idea, to get this type of insurance that it would be necessary to do these type of procedures in office buildings and gyms, doctors' offices. So you have to think that over. Like, okay, I was super happy before COVID. I was kind of just chilling, relaxing, traveling. I didn't want to really do something like this where I start a new company in the middle of this. But I think the need is so great that it would be unfair for me not to. And at the same time, I hope that this isn't necessary long. I hope that this thing, is taken care of, and to the point where this isn't necessary in any way. But my heart and kind of what everyone sees, I don't think that's the case. I
not
think
not for
this
the
is
not for the
I think
foreseeable
this is going to
future.
be necessary for a long time, even just to make people feel comfortable enough to start to return back to their normal routine. And then even into the future, flu season comes, gyms and things where they want to avoid uh, ringworm and staph, MRSA, any of these things. This is going to be the normal. I think you're going to see ultraviolet technology more and more and more in everyday life. And I'm starting to see that. Like, I follow the news for it. Different companies testing different things. Boeing is testing a handheld device unit, which looks extremely similar to mine. And my patent attorney was a former Boeing engineer, and he said, Al, I don't know too much about Boeing's unit. He goes, but your patent predates their idea even by 2 months. Like, I was so early on this and kind of so in front of it that it's exciting in one sense and terrifying on the other, that This is it could be a flash in the sense that a vaccine gets announced and people don't need this. Uh, but I don't know. I don't think that's the case. I think we're smarter than that to see even with like the flu vaccine, it's still a recurring issue every year. And the way these devices work, I could see the use continue beyond COVID, even in a environment like a preschool where you have tons of kids interacting and touching things, and they want to bring in the devices and disinfect the preschool before the next day. A gym. I mean, it's a no-brainer. The use is going to be very easy. So that's the benefit, is that as soon as I show somebody how it works and what it does, it's an immediate, they're just shocked. They're amazed at what it can do, and they want to implement it immediately. And the initial idea was to bring the company in as a service and do like a daily or weekly disinfection service. But our first demonstration was with the actual mayor of Woodbridge. So we showed the mayor of Woodbridge, the city business manager, and like the heads of the police, EMS, and fire, how do we can disinfect the inside of a police car, and that blew their mind. So just to give you like an idea, right now Woodbridge, at the after every person goes inside of a police vehicle, what happens is they have to take it to the depot, and they actually have to wipe it down and disinfect the entire vehicle, and at that point bring it back into service. That's for a police car. Now, for an ambulance, they have to take the vehicle out like overnight. They take the vehicle out, they disinfect it, they bring another vehicle. So that's a huge cost for them. Uh, and they were testing all sorts of chemicals. And there's computers inside of the police vehicles. There's computers inside of the ambulances that they couldn't spray. So it's kind of like a half measure. And one of the chemicals they used, they actually put it on the plastics in the interior of the car, and it completely destroyed one of the vehicles very quickly.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was able to show them the one that kind of really blew their mind. I used the small handheld unit. This one is 2 feet,
Okay.
has a handle attachment. And then I use the same attachment point with the optional wheels to do the mats. So I showed them that one over like the steering wheel and the dash, and how we can disinfect in under 4 seconds for COVID. So it was like a 2 second exposure with the UVC light at distance, and it could disinfect 99% for COVID. And then I did a demonstration for MRSA, which is super hard to disinfect in a hospital setting. And that required 50 millijoules per centimeter squared. So that's a scientific measurement of the actual UVC energy. And they make a card that actually measures that. It's a UVC dosimeter. And I showed them how to do that in under 22 seconds. And then I showed them for C. diff, which takes 100 millijoules, which is roughly 8 times the amount than COVID, right? And
Okay.
I did that in 48 seconds, almost 55 seconds, with the same handheld unit. And that's the smallest unit that I have right now.
Yeah, it's not even the
Then
ones back there yet, right?
no, so then this one here is 4 feet long with two lights. This one I showed them going over both seats in the front of the vehicle, on how we can disinfect the entire inside of the vehicle in under a few seconds. So even if it takes them a minute, it's super quick. And then the big one, the 4 light version, that's 4 light high output. We put that on a dolly cart and rolled it up to the side of the vehicle, and you could do the entire back seat and shine it into the front seat and disinfect. Again, 60 seconds, you're disinfecting 99.999%. So that's 6 log reduction. That's a hospital grade disinfection. You cannot achieve that without this kind of technology.
Yeah, man. I feel like that was so much to unpack. I followed it all because I love the idea, and I just like, so first of all, my infatuation of it comes from how modular you made it.
Yep.
Because it has so many use cases, right? Um, I'm not exactly knowledgeable on UV, but again, I followed like a little bit of articles and posts and stuff, because you want to stay hip on what's effective against something that's causing this pandemic. So the
Perfect.
one thing that I kept seeing was UV, UV. you see all these little products that are being sold to you by Amazon now for you to put your phone and your keys. That's like little UV holders. And I
Yep,
was looking at it, I was like, how long is it gonna take for us to just like figure somebody who just brings like a UV lightsaber and just starts like, cleaning things and it's
for sure.
it's like we got Elon Musk, he's probably gonna that was me thinking. I'm like he'll probably come out with just like a UV flamethrower or something,
Yeah,
something
for sure.
something completely wacky.
Yeah,
But
and it's out there, right? The technology's been there for 60 years. It's not like the UV technology is new, but it's so expensive. That was the big thing. Is like you're not going to buy $100,000 robot to come, inside of your home or your business. It's just
exactly.
not viable.
Exactly. So miniaturizing that and like bringing it down to a manageable level before it's like accessible to everybody is like where we were anyway. Like exactly what you're doing is what we needed, because I think about, like you're saying, the mats at the gym. Even
Yep,
before COVID, we were prone to every type of fungal infection you could think of, just from
sure.
uh, like, the sweat being exchanged, people walking around, barefoot, just
Yeah, you
anything,
had to put a
just
lot of trust into your training partners that they kept themselves clean. The school is immaculately clean.
of
These guys do
course.
such a good job keeping it clean that's watching their the way they disinfect the mats. They're super stringent about it.
Yeah,
But
shout out to Hollis
putting
Gracie here in Old Bridge.
for sure Hollis Gracie, 516 right there. I always laugh. I say, just mention my name, you get 30 days free. Uh, that's from the
You
Fighter
got
and
to
the
work
Kid
it in the
podcast.
pitch. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I don't know if you can even say his name anymore if the guy got canceled.
Oh man.
Um, yeah, so yeah, with like the Hollis Gracie Academy there, and what, but just in a hand to hand kind of grappling environment, even beyond COVID, it's going to have a use for sure. I showed that to actually Luca Tella. Luca is head instructor at Henzo Gracie Upper West Side, and he said, "Al, this is amazing what you did." And I value Luca's word because he's kind of the CEO of Galler. He's the brains behind Gracie Mag, and he runs the Upper West Side School from zero to I think 500 students in under 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
So incredible, business sense. And he goes, Al, this is amazing what you made. Like this is something that will be the gold standard for the mat disinfection going forward.
Yes, sir,
And
man. And
yeah,
on top of that, like I was doing my wave nightlife thing, and that's all being outside in groups and stuff. And I recently saw that you were at where was it, in New Brunswick?
yeah, the Stress
Um,
Factory
at the
Comedy Club.
stress, and you were that's a part of nightlife, So immediately it's like everything you're doing is touching the little parts of things just in my life. Everything that I was doing pre-COVID could
Yep.
benefit from what you're creating.
Yeah,
And
so that was a perfect case, like a tech demonstration on how to use it in a live entertainment setting. Tons of people, right? They're still doing so. Stress Factory was closed for I believe 4 months. They just recently started doing outdoor shows at about 25% capacity. And so the owner there is Vinny Brand. He's very, kind of local New Jersey comic legend. He's been running that place forever. And them being shut down, and then this, 25% capacity, there's talks of, oh, they're going to shut down, they're going to close forever. And I love live comedy. If anybody knows me, I'm constantly quoting comics. I like to laugh all day long if I can, and I've been to that place so often, and I follow live comedy so much. I was like, I can let me show them that I could do something that's going to help. And so we asked Vinny. I asked Vinny straight up. I said, "Do you mind if I come in and do a demonstration with the UVC, disinfection of the seating area?" We did the green room where the comics are in between shows. We did the microphone stand, the bathrooms, the ATM, and just showed him how it could be utilized. And I just brought the small handheld unit. I didn't even bring the big units to show them like how they could leave them in spaces overnight or anything. And then we asked Andrew Schultz, who's probably one of the biggest comedians right now.
during the pandemic for
Definitely
sure.
huge. He's
He's
million
killing
million
it.
plus followers, killing it on Instagram and YouTube. And so I asked him very directly, can we disinfect the green room? And his team was there. Big kind of a big link for that was actually his whole team was a gentleman named Alex Media on Instagram. He's like the video guy. He's the brains behind all the video for the podcasts and things like that. And he was like, "This is incredible. You know what you're doing. This is going to be uh, it changes live comedy, right? Because they're not operating. They're not able to do shows. That's a 3 months that they weren't able to perform. And he's like, you could see it on any a given movie set, you know, to disinfect in between scenes, or you can have it in a live venue like that, or a nightclub like what you were doing. You know, these places are going to need to adapt super fast if they plan to stay relevant or stay kind of alive in the sense of business and keep people safe. That's the other thing. So, you know, ultimately, we can't be what's the best way to say it? We can't be selfish and just open and potentially hurt someone. As much as it, you know, I am healthy, right? It may not affect me well. That may not be the case for someone else.
Yeah.
So, you know, that you have to take that in mind. My brother, my sister-in-law, both caught COVID up in Long Island, and he works in the city, and he caught it early, and they were sick. You know, they were sick for a bit, and thankfully they got over it. But their kids didn't catch it. So, you know, this is a really crazy thing,
Yeah, and
and
you never know. Like you said, you could be the healthiest person, and then all
yeah.
of a sudden you're sick, and you just can't seem to fight it off.
Yeah,
So
so like I mean,
it's
I
playing
saw an
Russian
ultra
roulette.
marathon runner that got brutal, like basically hospitalized from it. And he's in way better shape than I am. You know,
Exactly.
I'm semi fit. I work out every day. I try to maintain discipline in working out and lifting weights. You know, just being on the bicycle, especially with COVID. But you know, you're limited. You're super limited. And yeah, so I mean that was one instance where, and actually a huge kind of push for the business was both the demonstration with the mayor. That was the initial interest from them is so large that it shifted the whole business. You know, like okay, we're going to do this service. They said, you know, how much would you charge? I said, oh, we estimate between $130 an hour to maybe 330 an hour, depending on how many technicians we would bring and how many lights we would bring. And they go, well, how much to just buy them? And I was like, well, you know, I didn't think about selling them because the supply was in such short, kind of very difficult to get. And the supply I would only have to be able to maybe provide about 100 units. And they go, yeah, how much to buy all 100 units? You know, I mean, what did you just say?
Exactly. What you
Yeah,
want to cash me out? What?
that basically, you know, that was the initial statement is to buy out all the units that we have for every police car to do the ambulances, and you know, I'm sure they would have to roll it out to the townships, schools if they plan to go back to live teaching. You know, it's super challenging what they have to do. Right now, they're doing the remote learning, but if they plan to do live classes, you know, they said, can you bring the big unit into the classroom and disinfect the whole room? I said, yeah, you would probably want to bring two or three, you know, different size units, go circle the room, disinfect all the spaces. You know, they asked me questions about doing the upper air germicidal, and I explained that if they want to do it right, you're going to have to put a unit, a small 24-inch unit, in every single supply of the ductwork, which is where all the air goes through. And on top of that, you have to do it on the returns where all the air starts at. So, like if somebody, you know, you have droplets that come out of your mouth, it's going to go into the return. You want to disinfect it there, and then you want to disinfect the air before it comes back out.
So you want to catch it at all points that it's
Sure.
traveling through. Yeah.
If you really want to do this correctly, you basically have to make like a net, a protective net around the people that are in there to disinfect, you know, against a virus like this that's airborne, especially with the HVAC system. So that was one instance where I explained to them. I said, look, there's a WHO study that showed this virus in China spread from one person, and the distance was doubled. So instead of 6 feet, it doubled to 13 feet and caused like a super spreader situation to a family of 10, all through the air conditioning. So the air conditioning moved the air 13 feet further, and the COVID
Ah,
from the infected person transferred at double the distance that where they thought. And that was just from a signal, like an air conditioner on the wall,
yeah. Just pushing.
and
Exactly.
just pushing it. And that's the other problem. It's like these some of these measures that townships are saying to take. They want to do indoor dining again, and one of the recommendations was like, oh, only if you turn your air conditioners around to circulate more air. And I'm like, if you know me, you watch the Apollo UV disinfection like Instagram. I'm posting underneath the governor's statements every single time.
Yeah.
Or if like a business says, "Hey, we're reopening," I'm posting saying, "Hey, let me show you how we can just bring this technology in to help you." I'm not saying it's a cure. It's not. But it's another
It's a
measure.
great tool. It is a
It's a
great, it's
Yeah.
phenomenal. So,
It's the
so
it's
one
probably the
thing,
single greatest weapon that we have right now that's effective,
exactly.
that's proven effective.
Exactly. And I think the thing for me, the biggest selling point for me is that all the other alternatives, as far as like cleaning products or methods, either have a really bad smell, are
Yep.
really strong, toxic to your body. I mean, I'm not sure what the long term effect of UV exposure to our skin would be. I wouldn't imagine it'd be that bad because the sun is UV and stuff like that. But um, yeah, like I feel like that's something that you don't get any with a UV light. You don't get any residue. You don't have to spray anything. You don't have to like let it fumigate. It's kind of one of those things that you just turn on and pass, right? Is that's pretty
Yeah.
much how
So
it goes, right?
ideally, the UV disinfection, you want to point it away from you as your body. You don't want it to actually put on any kind of open skin. So that's why all of our shirts on our uniform shirts were originally designed were all going to be long sleeve. Everyone has to wear long pants. Anybody that's doing it, you need to have on safety goggles. Ideally, anything that's plastic would block UVC 100% or 99.999. And then on top of that, I would say a face shield would be ideal. So because you're just really covering the entire body, and then nitrile gloves on top of that for your hands. So the dangers with UVC are known. You don't want it actually exposing to your skin for a long period of time. The dangers are long-term exposure is cancer. So you don't,
Ooh.
that's the other thing. You can't just put these lights in a room, turn them on while people are underneath them, because you're gonna definitely hurt those people. The other thing is exposure to your eyes. Your eyes are extremely sensitive to UVC light. That's why the goggles and the face shield. So you want to be very careful, because if you look into UVC light directly, it could cause like burning sensation in your eyes, similar to like if you look at a welding torch.
Okay.
So these are all things that we have to educate our customers on what they can and cannot do with it, the safety measures they have to take. And that was the other reason why initially was to do it as a service, was for us to bring in, an OSHA certified rep on site to show them how things work. There's no guidelines for UVC, so there's no
Okay.
OSHA regulations. There's no DOT measures or anything like that. It's just kind of a gray area of be careful, right? So we would just come in and give them all the best practices with OSHA standards and safety measures, PPE, things like that. Ways to avoid cross contamination from room to room. There's so much behind it and this is the challenge, right? So I watch a business, I go to a restaurant, and I'm saying, okay, they're trying everything they can. They're doing outdoor dining, and I watch them. Okay, one couple gets off the table, the next couple sits down, and they go over. They wipe it
Just kind of wipe
down, they
it.
spray. Yeah, but you could see they're obviously struggling. The places, and my family restaurant background, a couple pizzerias, a couple Italian restaurants, and I watch them. What's going on. The business is hurting. The cost of the food products are sky high because our food production in the country got hit by COVID, and their money's down. And I would watch the employees. They're tired. They're not getting the same kind of tips, so they're kind of cleaning, but they're not doing a thorough cleaning of the whole seating area. So I would bring a light with me. If you watch me move, I have these lights and I have my uniform with me 24/7 now.
Just ready
Anywhere
to
I
go.
go, I'm ready to go. I will show you at the drop of a dime. This is how it works. Let me show you what you're doing wrong. Let me show you how you can use it. And it's super fast. Just, hey, look, this is what you're doing. And then you get your pushback of some like, oh no, I don't want to see anything, because you could see the fear in their face of that. If it works and they can't afford it,
Yeah.
right? Their business is going down. they can't afford to
They're gonna have to
implement it.
shut down.
And then they look like an idiot because, oh, this works, and then we didn't put it to play. And then the other side of me is like, I watch news stories. I'll watch a diner that's run by mom and pop, and the guy heard about UVC, so his bright idea was to go buy a lamp, and he
And
puts it
just
on the
put it.
ceiling. Yeah, he puts it on the ceiling, turns it on. He says at the end of the night, and disinfects the whole restaurant. It doesn't work like that.
Exactly.
The problem is that UVC is effective. The way it works is it's better to be closer, right? To put it in the most simpler terms, the closer you are to the surface, the more of the UV energy is being delivered down, right, into where you're trying to disinfect. As you start to get away from the unit, so 36 inches really is where things start to get really, you lose a lot of power. So let's say like with the small 2-foot unit, right?
Yeah.
So the 2-foot unit, I'll turn it on for you.
Yeah. I'm gonna switch to the regular mode so you can do a little demonstration for us.
Okay, yeah.
Just go
I'll
ahead
just point
and
it away from myself. I'll
okay.
put the goggles on, and
If you're following on the audio, I suggest going on YouTube, Yerrr Klk, so you can see the actual video part of it. But if you can't, just follow along.
so I would put the UVC light on, right, and it's facing away. So if it's facing away from you, we measure from behind the unit. There's very little energy coming backwards. But this unit, 24-inch unit, 2-bulb assembly, when I tested it using a Spear Scientific UVC meter, so that's a device that's used to measure UVC light. It's calibrated by a National Institute of Standards, so there's set of levels. That unit at about a half inch away is making almost 5,000, so you'd say 5 millijoules per centimeter squared, which is enough to disinfect COVID in about a second and a half, or a little less than that. You get to 36 inches, and that number 5,000 drops to about 193.20, which is
Sheesh.
a huge jump off, right?
Yeah.
So your drop off is huge once you get to 36 inches. We did a test with the 4-foot unit, and when we got 2 mat spaces away, or about 10 feet, the energy went from about 8 millijoules down to 0.01. So you have such a huge drop off at distance. That's where these people that think they're doing something, oh, they put a UV light on the ceiling. Okay, at 10 feet high, you're not doing anything. You're
Yeah.
going to make yourself feel better. You're going to disinfect some of the air up in the upper air areas, but you're not doing anything.
It's not as effective for sure. I
It's
mean,
not effective.
exactly.
Zero. It has zero effectiveness. And that's
Yeah.
dangerous because you're putting false sense of security in people. Which I kind of jumped into a Twitter storm today, and I didn't intend to. It was my belief is that people should know what's going on out there, and I'm huge on social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube making videos. I'm everywhere because my thing is everyone needs to know about this as soon as possible,
Oh,
and it needs
hello.
to be you're going
Okay.
to keep people safe.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think the way you're doing it, and like I said, I've been following along. I think it's great, man. It's so.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
What are So you got different sizes. Can
Yep.
you kind of like go over them and like the use cases or whatever situation you would most
Yeah.
likely use them?
So the 2-foot unit, like you saw, I would basically use that in a setting where if I was disinfecting a small space, I would be able to hold the small 2-foot unit. This one we did the inside of a car. It's super lightweight, hand portable. I can leave it, kind of standing if I wanted to disinfect this space. But again, more than 3 feet away from the unit, you're driving a huge drop off. I'll plug in the 2-light 4-foot unit. So this one. This one I'll put the shield on.
Yeah, safety first.
Yeah, safety first always. So this one is
Ooh, that's
obviously
bright.
much larger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super bright. 4-foot span, and it's still hand portable. That's the thing. and I can do a large space. So I can do a
Is
4-foot
that
scan
like
in one
an
shot.
aluminum casing too?
So this is actually a stainless steel galvanized. This one's galvanized. It comes in stainless steel, and it's polished. It also has a reflector on the inside. And the same thing. This could be left standing. And I don't know if you can. Yeah, you can see that
Yeah,
well.
you can see it.
So now I'm using it as a standing unit, and I'm disinfecting that side of the wall. And now anything beyond this amount of time, few seconds, and I'm going overkill. Now I'm going hospital grade disinfection. 20 seconds, 60 seconds, I'm going hospital grade disinfection. That's a 2 light version, right? And it obviously it looks awesome, right? Because of
Yeah.
the color, things like that. So it's impressive. Once anybody sees it, it's
There's
impressive right
definitely
off
a
the bat.
wow factor to it.
Yeah, and then like the only thing my nephew said, and he's right. He goes, "You need to attach a speaker to it so it makes some kind of lightsaber noise."
Exactly. That's exactly what I said before, yo. There's got to be a UV lightsaber coming out at some point. You
Because
got to be
that's
the first to do it. You got this.
yeah, that's the thing is that the issue is that it doesn't make any sound, so nobody knows that it's doing anything.
Okay. Yeah. So you can definitely like make a speaker for the little noise. It just when you click it on, it goes vroom. It
Yeah,
stays on.
I put on my phone. So
Ooh,
this is
that's
the
the
four
4 light
foot
version.
unit.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 lights, high output. So this is 300 watts of UVC energy being delivered directly in front of it. This one I've tested. We get disinfection all the way out to about 8 feet. So you can put multiple of these units in a room, put it on a rolling cart that we used, and you roll it into the area. You start disinfecting. You can roll it down the wall. Like at Hollis's place, we did the entire wall under a minute, and you just leave it in the space. Again, it stands. It could be turned downwards to do the floor, so it rolls. Has attachment points. There's a separate dolly that actually carries this one, and I mean it's flat pack. That's the other thing. So I designed it kind of like using IKEA's way of designing stuff is so that it could be flat packed and shipped.
Okay.
So one of the big concerns is like, so let's say a hospital grade unit. Give me a second, Tim. I'll
Yeah.
face you so that I'm not talking away from you. Keep the logo in front.
Yeah. That's visible. We can see it. Apollo UV Disinfection, baby.
Yes, sir.
It's the future. Lightsabers
Uh,
coming soon.
try to stay safe. Yeah. So the big thing is with these kind of devices is the modularity aspect of it is the multiple use. That's where all the patenting is on right now. So the patent is on a modular aspect of it, that it can be modularly used, the actual disinfection method, the apparatus, the process, and the manufacturing of the actual units. So I really figured out a way to manufacture these units at a low cost, get them out there in scale. And was the biggest challenge. So that took about 2 months to go from concept to patent pending, and that was just waiting. Now I'm waiting around with things that work. I know they work. I know there's a huge need for it, but I can't show anybody. That's what my patent attorney's telling me. He's like, you can't tell anybody, and you can't show anybody.
and
So that's
why is he advising against showing people? Well,
so
that's
yeah.
the
So
actual patents, right?
what
Like,
when you're before you're patent pending, it's an open claim process. So the way the United States works with patents, it's a first to file. It's not a first to invent. So you can invent something great or something on your own. And if you don't file a patent and someone else does before you, they have rights and claims over that idea or design.
okay,
So you have to file. So my patent attorney, his name is Paul Sutton. He's the basically founder of his own boutique patent firm in New York City. He's professor at NYU Tandon School of Engineering for IP law. So he's the top dog. Like in the city, he is the guy. He's the one that everyone knows about. He's got tons of publications and super sought after. And he even said it is I don't take something that is going to have a bad. Anybody can get a patent for anything. You could patent the most crazy thing. He goes, I don't patent things that are not one good. If it's not a good idea, I won't patent it. And if the patent isn't going to give you broad protections, I'm not going to file it because it's worthless. I'm
Yep.
not going to waste my time. I'm not going to waste your time. And that was like our initial conversation. I actually got him on his cell phone somehow, and I got through to him. And he was my original like target of who I wanted to work with anyway. And so I just relentlessly called and called and called and called until I got him to pick up. And then, he represents some huge cases, huge patents that are out there. One of his clients that kind of inspired me to work harder. I get inspiration in weird ways. It's strange how things inspire you or make you work harder.
Yeah.
But for me, like when I was working on the units before, kind of go backwards a little bit, before they were done and I was just working on the units, and my wife knows, she saw me do it, and it's a twisted way of staying motivated, but it was the only way to stay 100% in the game. I would click on the obituaries and I would see COVID case, and see someone, upper age that passed away, and say, man, you better work harder, because if you don't get this done, this is going to be more names on this list.
Yes,
That was the
sir.
pressure. That was the pressure I was putting on myself. Like, and like, you better do it. You better get going. Um, and one of the actual things that pushed me a little more. So I'm in the middle of the patent process, and one of his biggest clients is an orthodontist in the city that basically has like 20 to 40 patents on all the tools they use to clean your teeth and dental procedures. I mean, this guy has patents, so many patents, and they're all from this one, doctor in the city. And this guy passes away in the middle of COVID, from
Oh
COVID.
man.
Quietly, they put an obituary, and this guy's, has all these patents, is his biggest client. So, I tell Paul, I go, listen, if this thing, we get this thing going, I'd like to, dedicate the, percentage of the sales in honor of his, this gentleman. And he goes, Al, why would you do that? You didn't know him. I go, yeah, but he was one of your biggest clients. And look at this timing. He died in the middle of COVID. This thing is a COVID, killer. If basically, like we were saying, if COVID is a fire, right, and the whole world is on fire right now, that's pretty easy to agree, right? That
Pretty much.
everywhere. Then basically, this is the single greatest fire extinguisher right now. This
At
is
the
the
moment.
only one that's affordable, that could be out there, that's verified, that works. Kind of go back again, is like I stepped into like a Twitter storm today, and I didn't intend to. So there's a company that is getting pretty famous for like penny stock traders. It's called
Okay.
Optech. And this is like UVC Biz Talk now. Like we'll call this segment Biz Talk.
Is this what you were product testing on your Instagram today?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I did so again, part of the thing for me is to stay relevant and stay working hard. Is I want to constantly be producing not just content, but also know what's out there. So I purchased this optic eye wand, and this is their flagship product. This is a consumer version of a UVC device that's handheld. It uses LED, and the company maybe does $1 million in sales from these little units, right? And they put on their website 99.99% disinfection. One of their big advisors is Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, one of the original sharks. He's one of their advisors, and I'm not competing with them. I'm not in this space. I'm
Yeah.
not in the consumer market. So I just wanted to test it. I just want to know for sure, like, hey, these things that are out there, and I'm sure this isn't the only one. I'm going to test every device that's publicly available that I could get my hands on. So I'm just going to start ordering things. Go into, you go into Home Depot, you see these little portable sanitizers.
Yep. They'll be in the front of store displays within a couple months.
Yeah, for sure, because it's like a gold rush where they think, okay, let me sell you something that's going to disinfect. So I use this UVC meter by Spear Scientific, right? This is the one of the gold standard for measurement of UVC detection, 850010, and this one's calibrated by the National Standard Institute. This is like the bread and butter, for UVC nerds, like me. This
Yeah.
is what you use, and this is, I know it's highly technical. So I took this unit and we put it over the UVC meter. And it's, brand new unit, fully charged, measurement on the unit. And I take the measurement live. This was the first time I measured it. I said, let me just do it live. I'll record it and just see how it works. So I'm measuring the device's output, and the meter's not moving. It's 0, and it goes 0.1, 0.01, 0.02. And now I know what my units test at. The smallest one, shoots up to about 3 to 5 millijoules very quickly, depending on the distance. So 5,000 or 5 millijoules at about a half an inch to 3 to about 4 to 6 inches away. I'm like, this thing is not moving the meter. Okay, let me change the units. I'll change it to the way I can measure a smaller grade of unit. So like my unit would provide 5,000. Let me see if I can get this unit, to provide some energy. It goes to 10. So from, my unit's doing 5,000, 2,500 on the video, or almost 3,000.
Yeah.
Now I was 4 inches away. I put this on the meter. It's literally on it. I could tape it to the meter, and it's still at around 19. So to put that into perspective, again, it's all technical numbers I'm throwing out, right? The scientific standard for disinfection is 12,000 or 12 millijoules. For COVID, recently they did a study at Boston University, and they found as little as 6 millijoules would disinfect COVID in 6 seconds. This unit, so 6 millijoules would be 6,000, right? This unit, the I1 from Optec, was doing 20, really at the highest, ideally 10, and that was on the actual meter.
Yeah.
You would need to be on that single spot for 20, 30 minutes. It's completely impractical, right?
Yep.
For what they advertise. They advertise the unit. Let me turn it on. They advertise the unit. You turn it on, and then you wave it over the device, like you wave it over something, and then, okay, this is the demonstration that they're sanitizing.
Yeah.
Just like that.
For those who are on audio, this device literally looks like the neuralizer.
Yeah, this is the neuralizer from Men in Black.
Yeah, it literally looks like that. And
you're gone.
It looks
now you forgot
cool.
the whole podcast.
I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
Can you demonstrate? No, let me stop.
Obviously, they used it on themselves because they didn't realize that it didn't work when they put it out there. So they put these claims out there, and I get it what they're doing, and it's not the public's fault. They're being told that it sanitizes, but and I'm sure that over a long period of time, if the unit was touching something, it would sanitize.
So my question about all that is there somebody like regulating, or like know how like the FDA can give you the stamp of approval? Is there anybody like out here? Because for somebody to make a claim like that, which I clearly saw before we got onto this podcast, I was kind of like scanning through your Instagram to see if you had any other like demonstrations or anything like that, and I saw that you were doing the live testing on that, and it was clear to me that tool, the Optic, is it's effective, like you said, but it's not really practical. You would literally have to sit there in one spot, hold it over, versus what you use, which set off the meter, and it was hitting 5,000 easily. It was if you guys go to the Apollo UV Disinfection Instagram, you'll be able to see this. But
we're gonna put a long form video on YouTube where I'm gonna go more in depth on it. We'll do a full test on the unit at distance. We'll measure all the distances. But the big eye opener for me was as soon as we got a half inch away from the meter didn't move.
Yep.
You were at 0.1. And that's the thing is that, all right, so these demonstrations are showing, waving it over, they had like a police scanner, a telephone in an office, like, oh, I'm going to wave this over my seat in the airplane and I'm going to be disinfected. And it's not.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing, because they're making these claims and it's obviously not, true. So it's like that's what I was inquisitive about. It's like, is there anybody who can give you the CDC
on Twitter
or something like that?
On Twitter, it went nuts because the Opti family, or the people that are investing in this stock, it's a penny stock. I think like 0.05 cents or something like that right now. Those kind of stocks are super risky, right? For something like that, they thought I was trolling. They're like, oh, you've only been on Twitter for 2 months, they don't realize that this whole business is only 2 months old.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a new account. But it was the most kind of feedback I got was that, hey, what are you doing? Your the stock is already going down. Were you trying to manipulate the stock? And no, that's not the case. I
It's
have
like,
no
no, this
interest
is
in the
a
company.
exactly. It's
Yeah, I have.
a if it's like if I went on YouTube and did a review of the same thing, and I knew if I it was as knowledgeable as you in UV, I would be doing the same thing. I would be doing product reviews of what
Yeah.
actually works. What can I use in my home? So
Yep.
for somebody to even claim that you're trying to troll, and that it just doesn't make sense. You can
Now,
see that there was no manipulation. Like you reset the scale and all of that.
the other thing they
So
started, so now they switched the focus off the optic unit, right? And they would say, "Oh, you're comparing the optic unit to your thing that looks like the size of a house." I go, that's not the point of the test. A 2 foot unit, all my devices are going to be used commercially. So you're talking in a commercial setting. I don't see it, homeowner unless they want to buy it, but I don't see, like you're not going to carry it around with you in your pocket unless you're me.
this is
I
what's
have it
gonna
in
be
my
considered
trunk.
professional grade, commercial grade.
Correct.
Like if you want one in your house, you can get a 2 foot unit if you want to, kind of thing.
Correct. And
Where it's like that.
I do like little areas in my house with the units. My wife, she's
Oh,
always laughing. I'm like, yeah, no, in front of the couch, and I'll disinfect the couch. I'll do the kitchen bath. I'll do the bathroom. And now, like, my house is literally the cleanest place, on the planet. Um, and I like that. I can't be mad at that. One thing, like, I noticed people were doing was, they were leaving their groceries outside and in the sun to try to disinfect. So that's the other misconceptions is, so there's 3 bands of UV light. There's UVA, UVB, and UVC. So UVC gets blocked right away by the ozone. Though, so the germicidal band we don't get at our level. UVB is what you'll see kind of that comes off of a tanning salon booth,
okay.
and then UVA is kind of the more general one that we're all used to putting lotion on, things like that. So people would leave their groceries outside thinking it's going to disinfect, and that's not the case. So I did a test demo. We didn't put this video out yet, where I did a whole grocery cart full of products to ShopRite right here locally in town, and I showed them how you could put it over the scanning area and disinfect all the products as they're going underneath the actual light, and
So you
it
kind of
blows people's mind. Yeah, they're
you
like,
kind of just
"Are
like
you?"
switch it on as it goes on the belt kind of thing, right?
Yeah, we could wire it directly into the control for the belt, so that when they turn the belt on, it provides unit power, so that it's only on when the belt's rolling. So like if you go to shop right now, you see how they're using things, or Wegmans. I think every 2 or 3 customers, they spray down the kind of the track that it's
Yeah.
on. They'll spray it down. They'll wipe everything, and then people are kind of scared about the items they're buying or what they're touching. So I showed them that, and then on top of that, like my big kind of like finale, or like to show these guys what it can do. I took 2 4 foot units, and we basically put them on side by side, and we went down an entire shopping aisle from start to finish. And I just said, let's time it. We'll test it. We'll test the unit, how much it's putting out in disinfection. And we did 99% disinfection up the entire aisle. So that's a good 20, 30 feet, right? And that we were able to do in under 4 minutes. So we were basically from back end all the way to the front. We just walk at a slow pace, and we disinfected both sides of the aisle at the
At
same
the
time,
same time.
at the same exact time. Yeah.
Yep. That's
So
genius,
again,
man.
it's a matter of kind of, you could scale it further and further. You can put this thing, attach it, make attachment points to the scrubber they use, and just the same way they scrub the floors, you bring this unit, you can clean the aisles. You can do it at the end of the night. You can do it in every hour. You start on one aisle. By the time you get to the last one, I think you're going to see this. Like the first supermarket that rolls it out long term, you're going to see customers say, "I'd rather go shop there than this one," because they're not doing it.
Yep.
Um, One of the big conversations we had this week, I had like a hail, and I'm going to keep their info private, but I grew up with, I don't know him very well, but we grew up together. We graduated school together, but he's the CEO of a big, huge online commerce company, online kind of wholesale company, and I cold emailed him. I haven't seen him since so almost 22 years. I haven't seen him in 20 plus years. Cold email him. I go, listen, I know I promised myself I would never reach out to you because I don't need anything from you, and I don't want you to feel that I'm, looking out for. This is a CEO of what's called a unicorn company in startups. It's $1 billion company,
Sheesh.
and he
Okay.
started it from zero. He started it from zero, and it's $1 billion
And
plus
you said
company,
this
I
was your
believe
your
now.
classmate from 20 years ago.
Yep, high school classmate. I went to
Okay.
school with him. I seen him in the hallways. We would, he would watch me break dance back in the day, and he would laugh because he was super smart. I mean, this kid was smart. You could tell this guy, knew what he was doing, and kind of very sharp, brilliant, AP classes, things like that. And I was kind of, on a different path at that time. But anyway, so like I was super friendly, and then at the time I did martial arts, so everybody knew me for that. And I did demonstrations with martial arts, things like that. And he said, I cold emailed him and said, hey, I've a really bright use with this UVC technology for disinfection. I believe I can implement it in one of your warehouses as a test. I'd love to show you. All I would want is the opportunity, no bias, because I went to school with you. And that turned into a phone call just yesterday. Today's Wednesday, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Today's
Today's Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, just
Yep.
yesterday. That was a phone call with, now I'm on the phone with a $1 billion CEO, and let's roll the product out. Let's try it out in one of his warehouses. If it passes the safety standards for his OSHA guy who's tough, then we can roll it out across the nation on every one of their warehouses, on every product that goes through their whole distribution system.
Al, do you know Jeff Bezos, man? Because I gotta talk to him. Let me know.
No, I don't know Jeff Bezos. I do know that Amazon tested UVC on like a robot in one of their Whole Foods. I saw that article, um, and that was like they put it on a big cart and they just rolled it down the aisle. But the video of it is almost laughable because so they have it going down the aisle and it's facing like the fridge section.
Yeah.
So the problem with UVC light is plastic or glass blocks it 99.99%. So whatever they were disinfecting, they were just disinfecting the
The
front of the
glass.
glass. They
Yeah.
weren't nothing behind it. So super risky. The other kind of big jump or leap forward, his company that I called makes a bunch of robotics for warehouse distribution, move products from one end to the other. It's a separate little side part of their company. It's small, but it's a huge, part of their company. And I explained, I said, listen, I made this thing modular. I can easily attach it to one of your warehouse robots. And if we put it on a planned path while there's nobody in the building, you can disinfect the whole warehouse, very easily. We just got to figure out the pathing and make sure that the light is being exposed in every direction.
Just
And
do the calculations.
yeah, it's when it comes down to it, this is where like my math teacher and science teacher would point at me and say, I told you so, you're going to need this stuff one day. And where I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to need it, but it's very basic math and science. And
Yeah.
then you just kind of have to learn the terminology and the measurement units and convert things like that. But it's it's not difficult to understand once you have a high level of understanding. It's that leap from like not knowing anything to knowing enough to be able to implement it in all these places. So that's so with the robotics, the big for me, like I told them, I said, listen, the big challenge, I did a 4-foot unit where I wired it with 3 sensors: motion, PIR, which is passive infrared, and then a backup passive infrared, to see if I can, trick the unit. Because I wanted to see if I put it like an autonomous unit uh, facing somewhere. The whole thing is, as soon as someone comes in front of it, I want to be able to shut off the light. So I tried it, and sure, yeah, it worked. If I moved in front of the unit would shut off and it wouldn't come on, and the safety measures and things took action. So I said, man, I think I could trick it. So I stand completely still in front of the unit, and this was after I read articles were like, oh, we're going to put it in changing rooms on motion sensors.
Yeah.
I was like, well, all right. I stand in front of the unit and it comes on. I go, oh no,
Nuh-uh. Yeah.
they
Nuh-uh.
will never roll it out on an autonomous sensor. That's like the reason you don't see like a drone carrying a live weapon
Yeah.
is because the liability that that thing accidentally shoots someone or accidentally goes off is so high this is the same thing. If this accidentally comes on and it's close to
Just
somebody,
beaming on somebody. Yeah.
if you're really beaming on somebody, so if you're putting a UVC energy on someone, it's a lawsuit waiting to happen. One, and then two, the liability is so high for these companies. So the lawsuit alone would put that kind of to bed. And I've seen these robotic units. The problem is that I don't see them being used in a crowded space.
Yeah.
Some of the more interesting units. There's a unit that's being used in airplanes by a company called Daimler, and they licensed it to Honeywell. And it's like a push cart, so the person stands behind it. It has these wings that go out, and you could do the inside of the plane. I want to say that's at least 120 to maybe $200,000 unit. I don't know the exact cost, but I have a demo with just like a beverage cart and two of these units, two of the 4-foot units out. I'm sorry, two of the 2 light 4-foot units out wide, and I could do the same thing
The same
in a
thing.
unit. Yeah, in a unit that's probably 1/10, 1/12 the cost, and that's got to be as soon as I get these companies already. Let me like not to kind of say how big we are, right? We're small. I'm brand new company, all new designs, patent pending, things like that. This first day we got listed on Google News, I got a call from True D, which is one of the biggest manufacturers of UVC robots for hospitals, like a $90 million company. I get a call from one of their head sales reps says, "Hey, just wanted to know how are you doing this so cheap? How did you figure this out?" I was like, "All
You
right,
should
that's
say
weird."
it's none of your business.
Yeah, yeah, no, but no, I'm sure they could figure out how to do something less expensive. But their business model for the last forever many years is sell a very expensive unit to a hospital that can only buy one, for the whole hospital. Where I could, this is the whole idea. So the 4-foot unit, let's take two hospital units, which are about 110 grand a piece, so $240,000 a piece. And I'm estimating that I can get the manufactured cost of this 4-foot unit all the way down to $1,000. Right
Okay.
now, it's about 4,000 landed for a commercial customer, and we're not producing at scale. We're just producing a couple hundred a week. But if so I have a manufacturer that could do 1,000 a week, and I get the price of this down to about $1,000, let's say. I can fill up 2 shipping containers, 40 feet long, because of the dimensions of this. I can fill them up, flat packed all the way from end to end, 2 of them for the same cost. So
Dude.
you're talking thousands of units versus two.
Yep.
So you take these two same units, and here's the kicker. This is like the craziest thing for me. They still cost 110 grand. Somebody still has to move it into the room
Yep.
in order for it to work. Where, this is I was discussing with Luca, and he actually put me on the phone with Henzo. And Henzo goes, he's like, "Al, this is amazing." My brother, he's like, I want to tell, I don't know how many people know about Henzo.
The legend.
He's a legend,
Henzo
but
the legend.
he's a legend. He's a minister of tourism for the country of Brazil.
Oh, really?
He's
That's awesome.
frequently seen in pictures with the president of Brazil. He has deep connections to the royal family in Abu Dhabi and the Middle East and Israel even. He's got deep connections across the world. I mean, the people
Yeah, he's a
love
popular
Henzo.
dude, man. He's a
He's just
popular dude.
there's a reason why, and I'm going to tell you 100%. This is my only dealing with Henzo. I get on the phone with Henzo. Luca puts me on the phone with Henzo. He sent them a WhatsApp video of me doing the mats and the floors. He sends him the video and he shows him how it's being used. And Henzo goes, "This is game changing. The fact that you made this so cheap, so affordable." Countries like Brazil, Abu Dhabi, the UAE, India, these international countries where labor is cheap, they can take one of these units and put a laborer behind it, pushing it around, disinfecting subways, cars, airplanes, medical facilities, because they're never going to buy $100,000 robot.
Yep.
It's just not going to happen.
It's not. It's not.
There's no money. There's no money there, and
It's not practical, man. It's really
yeah,
not
it's not
practical
possible.
at
It's not
all.
practical.
It's not. It's not. You can. I mean, if it was cheap, everybody would
And
have
I
it. You
think
know.
like right now, exactly. And I think right now, like the Brazilian dollar is like 6 to 1. So you're talking 600,000 Brazilian reals for one hospital unit. That's crazy. So
It's
there's
that
that.
yeah, it's that hiding behind the paywall kind of thing where it's like, yeah, you can be safe, but you have to pay an arm
Yeah.
and a leg. It's like
So
at
now
that point,
this is how legendary Henzo is and how open and just friendly. I mean, he loved the fact that I'm a Henzo and I'm a Hollis student and that we're associated with Henzo and we're I'm a Hollis Gracie and Henzo Gracie Blue Belt. He loves the fact that I came up with this system, right? He goes, I'm gonna call the Sheikh of Abu Dhabi. I go, what did you just say?
what?
What did you just say? I don't understand the words that just came out of your mouth. This is not I don't speak the same kind of. I don't know these people, right? He goes, no, for sure, my brother. He goes, like, I'll do my Brazilian accent because I was joking about it today. He goes, for sure, my brother. He's like, your family. He's like, I call the Sheikh of Abu Dhabi, and I go, Henzo. I go, if they put an order, that's life changing
Life changing.
order. That's life change. That changes your life. I go, I would, want to give you something for that. He goes, no, don't worry, my brother. It's just the fact that you're a Benzo, you're a Hollis student, you're affiliated with us. It makes me look good. He goes, I don't worry about money. He's like, this is for you. And that's how legendary he is.
Yes,
And
sir.
Hollis, the same thing. Hollis, he was connecting me with all these people, and I'm like, Hollis, I feel like you're working behind the scenes, so much, helping me with all these people, and like I did a couple things for the school. I disinfected the school, and these guys, they have massive followings, and they're posting and sharing. Henzo shared it, Hollis shared it on their main pages. 500,000 followers.
Yeah.
Andrew Schultz shared it to his million
Yeah, these
followers.
these aren't no regular like little influencers. These guys are
No, these are
titans in their field.
monsters,
Yeah, they're
monsters.
titans in their field, man, for sure.
Yeah, and all these things, like as they started happening, it's like I don't know what to say to these people. I'm like I don't, I appreciate it, but at the same time, this is could potentially life changing, potentially also altering kind of my trajectory in life in the sense of I was super happy before COVID, right? I was traveling. I had stepped away from a very high paying job about 3 years prior. I left the corporate world of sales. I was in sales for a long time, and I was just happy. I was just kind of relaxed. I wasn't
Yeah,
doing
man. I
much. I was
remember you would
traveling.
just you would come in, you train every so
Yeah,
often. You go travel, you train where you travel. I was like, this dude's
yep,
living a good life.
yeah.
I want
People
to
were
be like
like,
Al when I grow up.
people were like they would laugh and they would say, "Al." There was one month where I traveled. I think 3 weeks out of the month. I was out of the country for 3 weeks out of the month, and they were like, "I've never seen anybody travel like you." And I love traveling, but I haven't been anywhere since COVID. I
Yeah,
can't. You can't leave.
yeah. It's
So
so
it's like,
risky, man.
yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, there's that, and the the steps now, like where you're building a business. This is the exciting part for anybody that does a business or builds a business. Like for me, I like telling people things like, do whatever it is that you're into, right? Do it. Just I don't care what you're into.
Just go for it.
There's something in you that's great that you may not know, and you can turn that into a business. I think everybody owes it to themselves to own their own business and kind of do this, do anything, because at the end of the day, when it's yours, you're going to care about it way more than if it's somebody else's, right? Like I'll watch people that are highly paid employees, and I could see they're not in the game, right? Their soul isn't in what they're doing. Meaning, if you see me, I'm going to have this shirt all the time, right? It's my brand.
Yep.
I live and die by this brand now. And that should be in anything you do, is that I think if you own it, you'll say, this is
You take
mine.
pride in it, man.
Yeah.
The pride is different. It's so speaking on that, around the time that I started training at Hollis's, that's when I really took the step to going into doing what you're saying,
Yep.
taking my time to be a freelancer and actually like if I had to make some extra cash, go DoorDash, but I was really focusing on my wave nightlife business. I also had the sneaker business, and they didn't really pan out as well as I'd love them to. It's not
Yep.
that they're gone or anything, but situations happen. Sometimes you take breaks. But that was what I was living by, and
For sure.
I haven't been happier. And now I'm doing this podcast, and it's the same kind of feel. It's like, all right,
Yep.
this represents me, man. And my whole thing with it, which I'm gonna tie into this whole story, is that I'm using this to communicate with people like yourself. Like I feel like you're finding your place, your purpose in this time
For
where
sure.
there's a lot of people who are just like, I wouldn't say lost, but are without guidance. They don't
For
know,
sure.
they don't
They're in
feel
a like
confident.
in a vortex. They're locked up in their basements. They haven't left. Some people initially, I had family that didn't leave their house for 4 months.
Yeah, man.
Didn't
I
leave
didn't
the
leave my
house.
house. I didn't leave my house till about June this year.
Yeah.
Literally, once
Like
we got
literally
sent in
never
March,
left. Yep.
I didn't go anywhere. I didn't see my girlfriend. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't see friends until June. I was like, I'll see you guys in the summertime, because I just need to make sure that everybody's safe. Everybody take their time,
Sure.
And in that time, things like this came out of it, And it's
Yeah.
it's so cool to me. Like this year has been really fucked up, but at the same time, we're getting glimpses of hope. Like for you to
Sure.
go through a process where you already had a head start, you were already doing work for something completely unrelated and
Yep.
unbeknownst to you at the time. But then, something just came calling and you were just ready to go, and you haven't stopped since. And the way you've motivated yourself, like you're seeing that this is something that's going to help people, for the foreseeable future. Because we don't know anything about this virus. We don't know if it's going to mutate. We don't know if it's going to keep coming back. We don't know if it's going to be
Sure.
a thing
That's
like a
the
flu season. Like, but
that's
this
the
doesn't,
danger.
it helps with COVID, but it helps with a lot more. Like you're saying, MRSA and everything. Like the way you're setting yourself up, I love because it is modular to the point where it's like, all right, now we have another, virus or something that's affecting us, but we can also get it with UV. All we got to do is turn the dial to 10, kind of thing. Use
Sure. Or
dial.
if I can take a small unit, we put it in the air unit, we can activate it for air. I mean, it's I don't want to say that it will be used forever. I think so. There's other technologies that are out there. So there's again, I'll go back to like science talk, I guess, is there's a far UVC, which is an interesting technology, which is a similar concept of UVC, right? But far UVC doesn't penetrate the first few layers of the skin, so it's supposed to be safe on the skin. But right now it's relatively extremely expensive. Now my patents cover the use of far UVC, which was forward thinking for me. I said I'm going to patent technology that's ahead, and any technology that comes out, because
Genius.
that's what you do when you do a patent. You want to
Of
be
course.
broad, like if you want to cover as much as possible.
Be
Uh,
Apple, man. Apple has patents for things we won't see for another 10 years.
if you that's some one of the, like, for me, like, I geek out on stuff. Like, some of the most fun times for me is literally looking through the patents and seeing what companies are patenting. So like I saw the Apple patent for UVC to clean the phones, like, in the patent way before they announced it. I saw,
Mm-hmm.
because I was looking up UVC patents. I was like, let me see what they got. And I was like, oh wow, these guys are really, this was before they even knew how to implement it. They don't know exactly what they were going to do. They just know this is the idea. Let's get a patent going, and then we'll figure it out. That's
Yep.
kind of the steps that they take.
And I
And
think that it's genius because it allows you space for innovation. You're like, all right, I don't know exactly how this is going to work, but I have the patent to start working on it. And if I find a new use case, I'll patent that and keep moving.
yeah,
It's it.
but for like a corporation, it makes sense, right? Because they want to have as many patents. That's the IP, right, is the value for them. So they want to have a huge IP catalog, and that's where all the big money comes in, by being able to protect patents by having 12 patents, 15 patents. Where for like a regular person like myself, a patent provisional patent costs a good provisional patent would cost you about $16,000, right?
Sheesh.
That's from start to finish, to include some drawings, the entire patenting process, and getting it done. And that's a provisional. You have to do another patent. Basically, you have to finalize it, and I would say that's another $15,000 to $16,000 afterwards.
So you're
So the
looking at
provisional
like
gives you
30 out the
one
gate.
year. Yeah, right out the gate, 30K right out the gate, and that's just for one patent. That's a good patent, right? So part of the challenge for like me is I didn't want to put that kind of big funds up front. So I asked Paul, the patent attorney, I go, how do I get the cost down in any ways that I can? And I'm scratching at the door. I explained to him that it's for UVC and that it's helpful and that I would, obviously donate a unit to the NYU if I had to. Like, I would do anything to get the cost down. So he goes, listen, if you write the initial package yourself, you're going to save about $8,000. I go, okay, sign me up. How do I do that? He goes, here's a provisional patent application. I'll give you an example. Write one. And this thing was 12 pages long.
Sheesh.
Now, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. My biggest, I'd say, where I'm not good at is written word. I'm not a great writer, especially in scientific, technical language that's for patents, right? That's extremely technical. You're using basically engineering drawings and terminology, and that's not my strong suit, right? So I can maybe tell a good story, but I can't write it. Especially, I'm like half dyslexia. I catch myself frequently misspelling words where I like put a letter here or there,
Yeah, and that's
and
something so critical. You
yeah,
can't
you
afford
can't.
to
You,
mess that
you
up.
cannot make a mistake. So I think I spent 8 or 9 days straight, 12, 15-hour days writing this thing out. And, copy a couple words here, put it for what I might use, figure out, look up a word that I don't know. All right. And that's the beauty, like with the internet, is it's
It's
so
instant.
powerful, right?
Yeah, it's
You could
instant.
you could waste your whole day browsing on Reddit, or you can use it to learn. And I've been on Reddit forever. I've been on the internet, since it's been around. It's kind of, I got lucky that I grew up without internet, and then the internet came, and I was only old enough to take advantage of it. And there's so much information out there. So like you could literally look through patents online. You could research the terminology. You could read scientific research papers on the technology, and all these things are at your fingertips, right? And you just
Yep.
have to go look for it.
Yep. And know what you're looking
And
for. At least get on the path to looking for it.
yep, and I think like we were talking about, like even with the podcasting, or even for myself, like I learned web design, search engine optimization, video editing, audio recording. I learned all these things on my own on the internet.
Yep.
I just researched it. Okay, how do I use Adobe Premiere? You give me 3 days, I'll figure it out.
Yep.
And
Especially with
and
all the
that's what I did.
video and the step by steps. Like,
Yeah,
once you figure, and then I feel like with Adobe specifically, once you figure out one program, the other programs have the same kind of gist
same
and
concepts. Yep.
same concept. So
Photoshop,
it
all
all
these
kind of
things I
transfers.
learned on my own. And I know, like we were talking about with you with podcasting, and I asked you straight up, like, how did you get into it? And you just try it.
Yeah,
And I
bunch
think
of
that's the
trial and error.
beauty, trial and error.
A bunch of
Uh,
trial and error.
and that's like when you said with like the businesses with the shoes and the Wave nightlife. Um, I have a huge background in always being in business for myself throughout my life. Right, I always worked a job, and up until like 3 years ago, but I always, from literally when I was a child, I always had a business on the side. So like in third or fourth grade, how they have the school store.
Yeah.
So in third or maybe fifth grade, I would say, my family had a small deli, right? So my idea was the school store is in such a stupid place. It's like at the end of the hallway, and it's in the long end of a hallway. It's totally out of the way. I'm gonna put a school store in my locker. I'm gonna sell stuff
Whatever
out of
you
my
need, I got
locker.
you.
This is fifth grade. And but I'm gonna sell like gum. I'm gonna sell pencils. I'm gonna sell all the same stuff. I go, but how can I beat the school store? It's the school store. So I pay a kid for his locker. This is fifth grade Al. I pay a kid for his locker that's at the corner of the hallway that the school store is, but the school store is all the way at the end of the hall. But this is at the corner of the main hallway and the school store. So it's like the corner property. This is
You got
Monopoly, right?
location. That's
I
part
got
one.
location, location,
Yeah, you
location.
got location.
So, but I knew that because I was talking with my family, like, oh, like, how do you do, like, what's the best way to run a deli? Like, you got to have location, 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 heavy walking traffic. So I literally picked the busiest corner in front of the school store. People would come to me before they'd go to the school store. And I was making real money, like actual money in school. And until, like teachers would catch on, like
Yeah,
they would
did
say,
they shut you
why,
down? Because usually they
Why
frown
do you have
upon
so much stuff?
entrepreneurship in the school. Like that
Yeah,
shit kills me, man. When I hear
they
stuff
do,
like
they
that,
do,
they
they
kill
do.
entrepreneurship. It's like, damn, this kid paid a kid for his locker and he's selling. He's like,
Yeah,
oh, they trying to. You know what? It's the man just trying to squash the competition. That's really what it
yeah.
is.
But it also it's every bit of that is a learning process for me, for anybody. Like so, like take it back to like your shoes, right? So I sold shoes online early, right? I'm talking maybe when the G unit sneaker was popular,
Sheesh, that's
the S.
so
Carter
long ago.
unit was popular, and one of those like famous stories, like even my nephews to this day, they still ask me about it because they're into like flipping shoes. I think selling shoes is a very underrated way of making a lot of money. I believe I can teach anybody how to make about 100 grand a year just flipping shoes,
Yep,
right? And that's like Gary V is super big on it and like
yep.
flipping stuff. I was doing Gary V stuff before Gary V was showing it, right? Like I was flipping things online, and that before this, I had an e-commerce website that I sold that was basically selling things online that were store returns at a national level. But like scaling it back, I was selling shoes. Let's take the S. Carters or the G Unit sneakers. We
Talking about
went to
for those
we
guys who
went to
don't know, that's early 2000s
this is
rapper
yeah.
sneakers.
I
Like,
I would say 2000. Yeah, it makes about sense the
yeah.
timing.
I remember the G
Maybe
units coming
2002.
out, man. I remember that.
So nobody thought they'd be hot. You know, like the G Unit sneaker's going to come out. It's going to be in white, and you know Nike was the shoe. But I was like, man, I think this is going to blow up. 50 cents big. So I went to every single Foot Locker and Champs and bought them out. I'm talking the whole store. Like so, like okay, if Woodbridge had 22 units, I'd buy all 22.
Yep.
I went to Harlem. I bought 25 pairs in Harlem. They see me in the middle of Harlem back then, which is not what Harlem is now, and they're like, "What are you doing?"
Why you
Like,
got so many kicks for?
there's no phones. They think I'm a rapper, like or some entourage guy. You know, there's no cell phones at the time. If they were, they're very few and far between. But I'm buying, 20, 30 shoes and I'm just selling them on eBay, selling them here and there. And it blows up, right? It's like a guy in Japan wants one for $300. And all these things, like these are all steps I did. Just there was never a period of time where I wasn't making side hustles of like
Yeah, man.
100K minimum 100, like 100K was easy. And that was like, it gave me a baseline, a foundation to know it also made it very difficult to work for other people
When you know your
because
value of the time that and everything you can do, like,
yeah, you're like I can make so much more so much faster. And this is like one of the things my nephew's struggling with. He's 18, he's just getting out of high school, but he's flipping Supreme stuff and shoes, and he
yeah,
makes so much money that like he went to work for a company, and he was like, this is my paycheck, and he was like, I said, yeah, after taxes. He's like, what's taxes? I
yeah.
said, well,
What's taxes?
that's what you were supposed to pay on all the profits you made on all the stuff that you were selling for cash. So it's like, you got to go back and pay taxes on that stuff now if you want to be legitimate.
Yeah.
And like yeah, but the good thing with like you doing the shoes and all these things is it's all a lesson.
Yep.
You learn from it. And like it all for me right now with this, everything came together and I had all the tools and abilities to put it all in use at one shot.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
without those
Under
other
pressure.
previous things,
Under
yeah,
pressure.
under extreme pressure. So like without trying to make a website to sell, pocketbooks back in the day. That's why I had something, that I basically made a website to sell pocketbooks online. Without that experience, I wouldn't have known how to do e-commerce. Without the e-commerce site, I wouldn't know how to do, web design and WordPress, SEO, or advertising. Even if that didn't turn into a giant thing, it gives you a foundation for the next thing and the
Yep.
next thing. And like this is the greatest thing I ever heard about business, right? And I'll always remember it. So like in sports, to be a Hall of Famer, you need to be like a 3 out of 10, right? For baseball, let's say
Baseball.
300. Yeah,
Yep.
the 300, you're a Hall of Famer. Basketball, I think it's a little bit different. Football, same numbers, right? You don't have to be perfect. 3 out of 10, and you're a Hall of Famer. With business, that's not the case. Business, it's one.
One. Yep.
You only need one. You
Yes,
know, you
sir.
you talk about the most famous people in business, Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, and
Zuckerberg,
they are
Bill
only known for
Gates.
one thing, really.
Yep.
They made something really
Their
big out of
mark.
one thing.
Apple, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I think this is a like $1 billion thing? No, I don't think. I'm realistic. Also, I'm not
Hey
going to
man,
lie to
you
myself.
never know, man. You never know.
But
It
yeah,
it,
that's the
it
other
all
side of
depends
it.
on the
Is
market,
I'm not
man.
I'm not going to act like it's not. I'll work
Yeah.
as hard as possible to grow it, and that's kind of where we're at right now. So it's all based on what's the demand as the orders come in terms of the lights, because that's changed the whole dynamic. Because I got requests for service, and they're like, okay, we'll do $1,200 a month. Come 4 times a week, and okay, that adds up. That's definitely. I'm not going to turn it down. It adds up. It's money. It puts somebody at work because I can put a technician out there to do the work,
Yep.
and things like that. But when an order comes in and it's 100 units, let's say my cost now about 3,500. That's $300,000 order, one shot.
Yep. I think
If a,
the beauty of it is you can do both. You
you
can
can do
literally do
both,
both. You
yeah,
can sell your units and have services,
yep.
depending on
So
the end user.
that's the exact point that we're at now. Is that so like in startup, kind of like we'll go back to biz talk.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, in startup world and like business building world, the ideal situation is you have a minimal viable product. They call it an MVP. You have something and you show it to somebody and say, look, I have something, it works, other people want it. And this is what happened when we just showed it, and this is what happened, when we put it out there. You take that MVP, you make a small presentation, like a 8 to 15 page
Yeah, like a
pitch deck.
pitch deck. Yep.
Yep, you take that pitch deck and then you pitch VC firms. And so I started doing that for the last 2 weeks. I spend at least a few hours a day emailing VCs, emailing pitch. We're listed on Angel List, where my vascular surgeon tried to give me $2 million. This is he legitimate. This is my vascular surgeon. He goes, I want to invest in you. I want to give you $2 million for 33% of the company, which is like a $6 million valuation on just the IP alone.
Yep.
He's has a huge background in UVC technology and light. And I go, Doc, I had to tell him no 4 or 5 times. I must have told him. And I'm telling somebody no to $2 million.
Yeah. Which is, it sounds crazy. It
Yeah.
sounds crazy, but like you said, after doing all the side hustles, after doing working
Yep.
for people, after understanding the intricacies of everything in your product, you
Yep.
know where the value is, especially after seeing you use it. Like the feedback is the ticker to
That's the
me.
key. Yeah.
That's the
Every
ticker to
time
me.
somebody sees it, the iceberg of like the cherry is that you have something special. This is
Yep.
huge. This is
This
this
is
is
this is a
life
game
changing,
changer.
game changer. I
This
mean
is a
the
game
the
changer.
terms, the terminology that keeps getting thrown out there makes you feel all right. I got something big, and so I said no to that. Right? I said let me talk to the CEO first, see what his opinion is. He's a CEO of $1 billion company. He took it from zero to $1 billion. So he raised funds throughout the way, raised
Yep.
funds at different levels. He has a huge amount of experience. Let me ask him. So when I got off, asked him on the phone, I said straight up, I said, what do you think this concept at this point with these kind of orders and the possibilities are worth at this time? He goes, well, in this climate, a MVP type of product that shows a high growth, coronavirus related. If you don't want to be greedy, you can price it at 10 million, raise funds at 10 million, or you could hold out for 13 or 15. But at the end of the day, you're talking small percentages, so it's not like when you're raising funds, you're not trying to negotiate over 1% here, 2% there. You don't want to
Yeah.
give huge chunks of the company. And then the other side of it is I want to pick who I work with very carefully.
Of
So
course.
that's the other side of VC. It's so crazy because I never thought I would have these conversations in the sense of where you're talking like this is the reality of it. There's so many people with a huge amount of money that are willing to give you money for your idea.
And then shelf
That
it, man. It's
yeah,
it's it's scary. It's scary. I don't like it.
there's so many, and I'm talking at the like that. You can get $1 million
I'll
for an
cut you the
idea.
check right now.
Yep, and the money's in your bank account. And
Yep.
this is the part most people don't know or they're too scared to look into because it's very easy to do something every day and like work and not have to worry about,
Just clock
am
in
I
and
going to
clock out.
fail? Is it not going to work? They don't like they care that you fail, right? They don't want you to fail. But at the end of the day, like these VCs and these angels, they're greedy. They have so much money that they're betting on one out of the 10 that they invest in makes it big.
Yep,
So nine out of the 10 fail, but the one of them becomes Uber and they
that's it.
make 100 times on their
Bucks.
money.
Yep, buku bucks. I
Big
think
bucks.
that is so with the wave nightlife thing. That's something that we kind of face.
Yep.
This podcast is something that this is my first project that I ever do by myself. Every other project has always been like a collaborative or something like that, and they all were good. There's no malice or any bad things that happen between anybody who I've ever
Yep.
worked with. But there is a difference between ownership, which is I
For
think the
sure.
biggest thing in that negotiation. Like somebody offering you $2 million, but for 33%, like that $2 million isn't really worth. When you break it down to all the time spent in research, all the time spent in production, all the time spent in calling these people,
Yep.
being on the podcast, like all those little things. Meanwhile, he's just cutting the check. It doesn't always equate. So that's something
Now,
that
yeah,
you learn.
that and if he added value, that's the other thing is he's a silent kind of on the side. He doesn't have experience in building a business like that, or if they don't add value and they're just a checkbook, then you have to value their money at a lower amount too.
Yep.
That's the considerations people don't, you don't realize when you're about raising funds or something is that, I mean, you could get money from anybody, right? But if they don't add any value, then I discount their money
Yep.
because they're just money at that point. They're just
They're
a
just
checkbook.
money. They're just a loan.
Yeah.
You go. It's like going to the bank and asking them for money and saying, "Hey, one
Yeah.
day I'll pay you back with a bunch of money after I make it good." You know.
Yeah. So like initially I applied for an SBA loan just to fund the company off the bat. And those rates are like 5% with, they don't even have to, you don't have to pay it for a year. So you're not giving any equity up. You're just
Yep.
paying them 5% interest later on. And that's cheap money, like in raising money, raising funds. You don't give them any equity.
Yep. And
Uh,
that's usually what's suggested amongst like these YouTube entrepreneurs to just do
yeah.
friends and families, go to a bank, get your SBAs. Try to figure out a way to get money even if you have to go into tremendous debt, if you really feel confident in your product, to then come out with complete ownership. Because once you
Yep.
start turning the profit on that ownership, your profit is all yours. You're not, it's not getting cut into three pieces with somebody who didn't put any real equity in. They just cut the check,
Yeah,
which is
and that's the
that's a
other side
huge
of
point.
things
That's
is that
huge.
like huge orders, if they come in and you're now self-funding, that it changes your negotiating. It changes the game because now you switch from, oh well, and now I have a $2 million order, so now my company's worth this much.
Yep.
I have a $5 million order. This country, my vascular surgeon, he was begging me to get connected with this guy in Korea, and he's like, these guys put in an order for a laser he designed of $10 million, one order. And he goes, they design, they take the order, they then they fulfill it over there. They make it, they just, working off of your patents and things like that. He goes, but they did a $10 million order on a laser that he invented, and it was just like that. Here, ten
Yeah.
million dollars,
It's like, hey, we're in
and
the market for this. We got the money. It's
yeah,
exactly what you're saying. There's people out there that just they're playing a game. They're just sitting
yeah,
back, looking
yeah,
at the pandemic, saying, okay, which company do I think is doing good? I think I like UV disinfection. So let me look at who's
yeah,
coming in. All right. Well, Al's got his thing over here. You got Tim with something over here, and I
yeah,
got Joe and John over here. You know what? Let me put a little bit in all of them, and I'll sit back. I don't care. I got the money. I could just
yeah,
let it just go. I got $1 million to play with. And if one pops, like if I get an Uber out of one of these, then hey, I'm a
yeah.
billionaire too, I guess, right?
Yeah,
So
and that's the level of like where they're not gambling because they have not just their money, but once they're in play, like these VCs and angels, they're not even using their money anymore.
yep,
They're just getting it from other super rich people that
yep.
don't want to deal with finding the deals. Like a lot of people, they don't realize the rapper Nas. Nas is one of the biggest venture capitalists in the tech world. He's owned stakes in, so his company has owned stakes in Uber, Lyft. I mean, early stakes too, and that's Queensbridge Ventures. And
Queensbridge.
people
Okay, shout
people
out
don't
to
even
Nas.
know. Yeah, they don't even know that
It's
the
very
Nas is
quiet.
quietly going to become a billionaire. quietly. Like you don't know that about now. People don't hear that, but he's got a VC firm, in Queens, and they look at these deals, and they find things, and they're ahead of the game.
That's his
And
style though. Nas has always been the guy,
yeah,
on the quiet tip.
Soldier Boy, like people clown him, right? These guys they clown Soldier Boy. There was another one. Oh, what's his name? Oh my God, I could have sworn I would never forget his name. But I'll sure I'll remember it at some point. But he's big into venture capital. I don't think it was Chingy, but it was like one of these rappers.
Oh, Chameleonaire.
Chameleonaire,
Chameleonaire. Yeah.
huge into venture capital.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys are all becoming super rich off of investing. And
Smart
like,
guys, man.
but
Everybody who has money and can play the game and
yep,
is, appreciative, because I feel like all those guys come for that from that hustle mind state, right? And it's the
for
same
sure.
kind of thing of in the music industry. The music industry is so predatory, where it's like if you don't have ownership, you are screwed. You can have a hit. It's like
Yep,
that Chingy song, they see me roll. I forget, right and dirty. So if he doesn't have ownership of that song, which got
yep,
played and will always get played. Like it'll be in a movie in the next 5 years. Somebody will play it in a movie,
yep,
guaranteed. And that's royalties. You're supposed to get paid off of that. So if you don't have the ownership to your IP, which is what your patents are and stuff like that, if you don't have the ownership, or you don't have high percentage of the ownership, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like we hear all these stories of artists who are literally broke and starving, but they
yep.
had all this money and hits and all the success early on, but the devil's always in the details. So I'm
There's
actually really glad that you brought that up, because that's it's not talked about enough. And like not just
there's parallels
outside
though,
of
like
music,
right, it's all over the place. So there's two perfect things I could bring up, and I can like literally talk about this kind of stuff all day. This stuff keeps me awake at night. I'm a night person anyway, and this is
Same,
like
man, same,
yeah.
same.
So like there's a podcast that if anybody wants to learn anything, one single thing about business, there's a podcast on Joe Rogan by a gentleman named Naval, Naval. He's a big time venture capitalist. He's uh, founded Angel List, which is the site that my company's on to try to raise funds. And it's basically like where other VCs come on. And he talks about business and ownership. Another person that people would really do well by listening to is Damon Dash. I don't think he gets enough credit for it. He
Oh,
got a lot of
dude,
flack. He was on the Breakfast Club trying
that
to explain
that's
to
exactly
them.
what I was just about to say. That is legendary. And I was just
It's
watching
one of the
a
most
Joe Budden
legendary
podcast about it.
interviews, but he's on there trying to explain to them the difference between him working for himself and them walking into a job. And at the end of the day, he caught so much flack because he was going so hard on them. But at the end of the day, he was saying, if you don't come to work, can somebody fire you?
Yep.
And they were like
It's that.
trying to play it that they can't, that they, no, I'm the boss. But they knew the answer was yes.
Yeah, of course. And honestly,
And
like I said, I was literally just watching a Joe Budden podcast, and he brought it up because he's having a
yep,
fight with Spotify about the same kind of things. He did an exclusive deal. There were supposed to be milestones met, and they keep switching like the value of the streams and stuff like that, so they didn't get their milestones, et cetera, et cetera. But he was talking about catching flack from Charlemagne, who
yep,
is one of the top guys in all of broadcasting, but he works for iHeartRadio,
yep,
and he was like, Dame was trying to tell you, and you guys are acting stupid. Like you guys you're not realizing that if you're creating so much value, you guys, the Breakfast Club is what people come to watch.
yep.
If you own the Breakfast Club, because they don't, it's a property of Power
Property
105
of
or
the station.
iHeartRadio. If they
Yep,
own that, the money that they would be making and the decisions that they would be able to actually choose, because they're always reading ads. So Joe Budden was attacking that. It's like, yeah,
yep,
go read an ad. Like, he was like, I own everything. If I don't want to read an ad, I don't have to do that. And that's something
yep.
that is what the internet and our times right now is really showing us. It's like we're going back to a different type of America where people are actually putting money into themselves. Like back in the day, we had trades where people would own their own businesses and be a plumber or a mechanic. Like this landscape, this internet thing is changing it, where everybody has that the access to that information where, all right, you can go build a UV
Yep.
disinfection thing and learn research and then learn how to keep the ownership of it, and connect with these people without having to
Yep.
pay a toll. Because usually what it was back in the day was like, all right, I can take you to the guy, but I'm gonna have to get worked into the deal, because you don't have access to him. I'm
Yep.
your access to him, so, and then like you said, the
You
researching, and
lose this is time.
you lose so much, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
love that
think
you brought
right
that up.
now is the greatest single time to start a business for anybody because you can do it with little cost.
Yep.
You can literally get started for next to nothing, and you can do it. And if you fail, you don't lose anything because ideally you stay working on the outside and you build it before you start.
Yeah, you
And
don't
if you
quit
do
your
lose
day
anything,
job till you're good.
oh yeah, my whole thing, like before I stepped away from my sales job, and I was making we used to call it like drug dealer money, right? So when we were sales guys, and we would routinely get made fun of like at how much money we were all making. And these were a group of sharks of sales guys. Where everybody's making super high six figures. We would do financial paperwork with like lawyers and doctors and laugh at them for how much money they put on the paper. Like
Yep.
if they would put an amount and we were making double what they were making, and they went to school for, I that was making a $500,000 a year in sales, and he had no high school graduate GED maybe or high school graduation, diploma, and he was making drug dealer money, right?
Yeah.
And we were just like laughing because for me, I stepped away from that job. But before I did, I made sure that an entire year went past to where I didn't touch my actual salary. So I had to be making income on the side or passively to where I know wasn't touching that money to use my day-to-day life, right?
Yep.
And that money just would go in the bank and it would stay there. And then that was the time when I decided, okay, a year went by, I didn't touch it, it's still there, and I did need it, so I can step away. And I got that tip from somebody earlier in life. And again, like you never know where you're going to learn these things, but like I learned that from somebody that left their job selling Amway. They were literally selling Amway. They grew into the company, and he told me, they teach you to not leave your job until you have a full year's worth of passive income. So I kept that. I was like, okay, I'll
All
take that
right.
info and I'll
That's a
apply it
gem.
somewhere else down the line.
That's a gem.
Yeah, it's a gem. You put that to the side, and you never know when you might use it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
but
you find yourself in a situation where it's like, you know what? Let me try this, and then it's like, oh wait, okay,
yep.
it's working. All
With
right.
with the whole Dame Dash thing, like to go back to that, and like even in hip hop, it's one thing where I'm super fortunate or happy to say like I grew up with hip hop and that it was such a huge part of my life. So it's like that hustle mentality, that street mentality. It's one of the greatest educations you can get to see, grow from nothing and build or work extremely hard where you know things can get done. But like the radio station or these artists, there's a perfect saying is that like a lot of these guys get famous, but they're broke.
Yep.
They show on the videos they got all this money and all this stuff, but it's all rented, it's all fake money. Where like the big money is behind them, and
Yep.
I'd rather be rich and unknown than be famous and broke. And Novel said that on the
Exactly.
Joe Rogan podcast, and I couldn't agree with it more.
Yep.
Like you want to be unknown and have wealth or money, like rich. There's so many ways to describe it because it's all relative, right? Like to somebody that makes uh 10,000 a year to somebody makes 100,000 a year, that person's rich. The person that makes $1 million a year, the $100,000 person thinks they're rich, and then you keep
Yep.
climbing up to a billionaire and higher, and everyone just sees it differently. The scale keeps going, and I don't know, where those numbers end. Like it's an endless game, I think. So
Yeah. If numbers go
for
to
for
infinity,
anybody
so,
that
so does
knows.
money.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the big part of it is like where you could get in a lot of trouble for people is where you're chasing the actual money instead of enjoying what you're doing. Like for me, I love building a business. I mean, I would rather build a business in its infancy and hustle as hard as possible. That drives me. That makes
Yep.
me, get up in the morning. That makes me, I enjoy it versus like sitting around and not have just having a bunch of money. and not being happy what you're doing, you could be miserable, and like Gary Vee talks about in the back of the Ferrari, or crying in their Ferrari, and that's a horrible feeling
Yeah, it's like
to be
you feel like
wealthy
you
or
got
rich
everything.
and be miserable.
Yep. You feel like you got everything,
But
but you got
also, I've
nothing.
seen the other side of it. We grew up in areas where you see poverty. You see extreme poverty, and I also seen that where people are like making life and death decisions at the gas pump. Like
Mm-hmm.
$5 is going to make their day, is going to break their day, and we don't have money for that. Even my own family. I remember my friend. He saw me for the first time with a pair of brand new Nikes. I had to be 19 years old, 18 or 19 years old. The first time I had a pair of Nikes on, brand new, like from the store. And he goes, "Al, are those new?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I've never seen you with a new pair of shoes." And I was like, "Yeah, because my family couldn't buy them. They just wouldn't buy
Sacrifices.
them for me."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sacrifice. That's
Yeah,
the
man.
that's the like the immigrant life or whatever.
Yes, sir.
And people take that for granted now. Like you see kids with $100 shoes, $200 shoes, and I think it's important to teach them that money, has value, and that maybe they don't need those Fortnite V-Bucks that don't give you
Don't do
anything in life,
anything,
or
man.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough because it's not talked about in school. They don't teach you how to balance a checkbook. They don't tell you how to build a business. They teach you how to work for somebody,
Yep.
and they shun that mentality, and that's so opposite of what like makes me happy. I would rather work for myself for free for 100 hours than
All
work for
day.
somebody, yeah, for
It's
80
because
hours.
it's
It's
not
just
work at that point, man. You're having
oh
fun. You're having fun, man. I want to thank you
yeah,
so much, brother.
whatever.
This was
Thank you. No, for
amazing,
sure.
man. Like I
I'm
said,
sorry if I kept you long. I think I kept you a
nah,
couple of
nah, nah. You're good, dude. You're
yeah,
good. Perfect. I love everything you brought up, man, because it's honestly, it's everything that I think about now. In the process that I'm in and the journey that I've been in. Obviously we know each other from jujitsu,
yeah,
and you got to see where I was at that point, where it's like I was doing things and you were doing your own. We never really had this kind of conversation about what we did,
yep,
then. But now we're on a podcast and we're talking, and it's I see myself on that same kind of path. It's
for
like
sure.
I'd rather be here doing this, man, than clocking in, clocking out for somebody.
And
I
and
much
I
rather be doing
appreciate you
this.
letting me, giving me the opportunity to come on and talk. This is huge for me, like just to get out in front and talk to people and
Dude,
talk to
for
you.
sure, man. For
Uh,
sure, for sure.
yeah,
We're both in our infancies, man. We're both
yeah,
here, and I this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who I know who are doing things. Like I personally know you. We have a personal connection from jujitsu. That
yep.
that jujitsu bonds are different from anything else that I've ever known.
For sure. I think you choked me a couple times already in
Yeah.
life.
Like how else can you say that? I choked this
Yeah,
guy out, and we like
yeah,
he's
yeah,
gotten me too. It's like, but we still talking.
yeah,
Like if
yeah.
anything, we're having a
Ah,
deeper
we hug it out.
conversation.
We start over again. That's the best
Yeah.
thing about jujitsu.
So yeah, man.
We simulated murder on each other, and we hugged and like took pictures when we were done. You know,
It's kind of psychotic, man.
for
You
sure.
gotta know if to know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No,
man.
thank you.
Like
Thank you so much for letting me just
I
talk
love
and,
it,
and
man. Before we go, you want to tell the people where they can reach you if they want to do a demo or anything like that?
for sure. So every social media platform you're going to find us Apollo UV Disinfection. I think Twitter and TikTok. No, TikTok has us Apollo UV Disinfection. Twitter capped us at Apollo UV, and Snapchat as well. Apollo UV. The YouTube is Apollo UV Disinfection. The website is ApolloUVDisinfection.com. 732-365. Let me just get it off the back. I should memorize this by now. 4455 732-365 4455. If you want to call, if you want to discuss. Big thing, like if you're a listener, if you're anything in terms of if you're in a high risk sensitive area, like if you're a nurse, if you're a doctor, teacher, whatever you may be, I will come or send someone to do a demonstration at your place, no charge. We'll come and show you how things work and take it from there in terms of if you want to move forward in terms of services. There's no pressure. I just want to get the technology in front of as many people as possible. And yeah, that's things how we're moving. And if you want to reach out to me, I am always available by phone, by direct message. And I'm connected. The phone is connected to me. We are one.
The phones is always connected. We always answering.
That's
All
the
right,
thing. If you really want to do something, you better do it 100%.
of
So I
course, and you
am
got to be ready to answer the calls, man. I feel
100%.
like a lot of people go gun ho and they're like, hey, I got this thing. But then when you call them, it's like, oh wait, hold on, let me call
Yeah,
you
no.
back. Hold, you know?
You won't catch that from me, and I'll like end it with that and say like, so one person wanted to give us an appointment to do a demonstration. He said, listen, I only have time at 4:30 a.m. in Manhattan. I got this meeting, I got that meeting. I could go, okay, perfect, I'll be there at 4:30. And he thought he had me, like he was bluffing me out for the 4:30 meeting. And when he realized that he had to be there for 4:30,
He was
he
sick.
rescheduled me for 10 o'clock
Yeah.
because he didn't know. Like, you don't know who you're dealing with. I
Yep.
will be there at 4:30, and I'll present as if this was 10 o'clock, 11. I don't care.
Yep.
I'll bring the same energy at 4:30 as I would at midnight.
God
So
bless,
you
brother.
better have your, like Deion Sanders put out the thing for his videographer. You better have your belt on tight if you're
Yeah.
talking with, because I'm coming. You know,
Yo, thank you so much, Al.
for sure.
Guys,
No,
I'm gonna
thank you.
put all the information in the description so you can reach out to Al if you have any questions. Brother, yo, I'd love to see you soon, man. Hopefully
For
on the
sure.
mats. God bless you on this journey. I think you can't lose, man. This
Thank
no
you.
matter which way it goes, I think this is genius and it's gonna help a lot of people, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks again.
No doubt, man.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.